Welcome back. In previous panel, we heard about the ways how 5G and technology can change how we live everyday life. Great opportunities ahead, but this is critical infrastructure. What does it mean? It means that if things go wrong, they can go wrong really, really bad. And this is the topic for the next keynote. The goal is not only to dream about all the crazy stuff what we could do, but prepare this foundation and environment. And the topic for the next one is Mastering the Challenges of Critical Infrastructure, given by Anne Stefan, Vice President of Critical Infrastructure and Networks at Rohde & Schwarz. Please welcome Anne.
Thank you. So, good morning. It's really a pleasure to be back here in Riga and be physically there with you. So, I will talk today about mastering some challenges of critical infrastructure. So let me introduce the company Rohde & Schwarz first. So we are known throughout the whole communication ecosystem as being a reliable partner for our customers. And we are pioneers in technology, and therefore we are also working close together with all critical infrastructures to enable them with communication, securing communication. So let's have a start and have a look about critical infrastructures. This term is in the news all over these days. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have to say, but these days there is a large focus on critical infrastructures. So if you look at the picture behind me, this is a definition of the German Federal Bureau for Critical Infrastructure, and also about a plan, a strategy for protection of critical infrastructures. So critical infrastructure can be the technical critical infrastructure, but it can also be the social economic part of the critical infrastructure, like you see in the picture. So what potential threats we have to the critical infrastructure? So one could be events, could be environmental events, could be a flash flood, could be a fire, could be anything that is happening out of it. But on the other hand, there can also be attacks. There is a real attack coming to a critical infrastructure with having the mission in order to stop the critical infrastructure from operation. And the third one, not to forget about, whenever we have critical infrastructure, there are human beings involved that are operating or they are working in the critical infrastructure. So also a failure done by a human being or a machine that is not working in the critical infrastructure can have an effect on the operation of critical infrastructure. So in my presentation, I will focus, and let's have a look on some of the more technical part of the critical infrastructure. You see some examples here. This could be a harbor, this could be an airport. It could also be a factory or a warehouse, mining, oil, gas. There are multiple examples that we are having for the technical infrastructures. So I choose one example that is close to all of us and that we are using and know all very well, which is the airport. So what are some of the challenges we see in the airport ecosystem? And this is as well a critical infrastructure. So let me start with one of the things. This is the non-cooperative drones. I think everyone has present the news when an airport has to stop operation because some uncooperative drones are approaching the airport and therefore they have to stop the operation. So this is one of the topics. Another one could be interference. And interference can also be multiple part of interference. Could be spectrum interference, could be signal interference, could be interference to the communication channel. Another one is also a very famous one, not just at airports, is cyber attacks. And the last one we want to highlight here is everything that makes a disaster recovery necessary. So this could be the environmental aspect I talked about before. This could be a fire, anything, an earthquake that stopped the infrastructure and had therefore an effect in the operation of the infrastructure. So let's start with the non-cooperative drones. This is definitely a challenge at the airport, and what to do, what are solutions to overcome their challenges? And we just had some discussions with some regulatory authorities before, where they also said, yeah, this is definitely a topic they not just see at airports, they also see in other environments. So imagine being at the airport and there are non-cooperative drones. What is when you have a solution? What is really the intention of the solution? And the intention is you want to, as early as possible, not when the drone is approaching the airport, but even before, as early as possible, you want to have the knowledge about there is a drone coming, and also you want to stop the drone. And you want to detect the pilot. So there are solutions available where you can do all of that. So as soon, and this based on the communication, as soon as the drone starts communicating to the pilot, as soon as the drone is enabled, and this is before the drone is up in the air, you can detect in a certain area that this is happening. And then you can jam the signal of the drone, and that has the effect either the drone has to go back to the pilot, or the drone just has to safely land. But the drone will not continue flying if the signal to the pilot is jammed or is interfered in that way. So you're using kind of interference in this way in order to stop this. And then, of course, you also want to understand where is the pilot, because if this is not a hobby pilot that does it by mistake, if this is an intentional threat, then the pilot might just take another drone and put it up into the air. So you also want to understand, and you have to find the location of the pilot in that use case. And also here as early as possible. So this is one possibility how to solve this threat. If you talk about interference, there are also multiple ways of interference. First of all, whenever you build communication networks, the moment you build the network, you ensure via the test equipment that there ideally is no interference. So this means by a proper way of testing, you try to eliminate and understand that there is no interference and guarantee that the communication networks are in operation. But if someone is putting interference on purpose, really to have an effect on the communication, then what to do about that? And then you need to have solutions who can do a continuous monitoring on interference. So there are solutions available that you can put in where you monitor the spectrum, where you can check the clearance of the spectrum in a certain area. And this would also help you to understand as soon as there is interference coming. Coming to the cyber attacks, and this is a massive field. So one holistic approach to that could be, first of all, we all know about the firewalls. And the firewalls are essential in this scenario. But there's a life behind the firewall. So what we are looking here at is behind the firewall. And if you think about an airport, and if you would consider the airport as a disclosed environment, of course, we all know about the security lanes, the security scanners that are preventing us from bringing things into the airport. So they are kind of operating as a firewall. But against IT attacks, cyber attacks, a security scanner would not help that much. So here you need really the IT firewall in that case, but also behind that firewall there are human beings and there are machines communicating to each other. So you need to ensure, even if you have a reliable firewall in place, that after the firewall, in case there are some anomalies, you have a chance to detect them. There are techniques and there are solutions based on deep packet inspection that help you to really analyze and look into the protocols of the communication so that you can very early see whenever there are anomalies. And they also tell you, is this a severe anomaly or is this something that's maybe an error, but this is nothing severe for the operation of the critical infrastructure. And coming to the disaster recoveries. So for a disaster recovery, for example, you have certain stations that are supporting the communication. It is essential to have a backup plan for that. So to have a backup recovery, and there are solutions available from us that are called the mobile air traffic control radio systems that you see in that picture. They can be just taken. They are fully operational with a battery. You can also put them to diesel generators for a normal backup recovery, but you can transport them via helicopter or via a truck to a place where you have an immediate need because something else has been destroyed or has been affected by something from the environment. And these come in a shelter, so this makes it transportable. So the mobility is really the crucial aspect here, that you can take them, you can store them, and you can take them and have them up in operation, depending on where you need them, in a minimum of hours. So also these kind of disaster recoveries are very, very important in that environment. So looking at these few challenges, and of course there are many, many more challenges around an airport, but just for these few challenges, there are solutions available. What other challenges can come up? And this goes also beyond the airport. And one of the challenges is I talked about having a communication network. So if you think about a communication network you are having with your mobile phone, if something is not working in that communication network, you might have a call drop. This is nothing that makes you excited, but it's really something that would not threaten your life immediately. In the critical infrastructure, the quality requirements to a network are a lot higher, and therefore you also need to ensure that the communication networks in the critical infrastructure are really fulfilling the higher requirements, and you do this by proper testing. The panel before talked about harbors. As I said, it goes beyond airports. It's also for the harbors. Whenever you have communication networks, you have to ensure they work properly. Looking a little bit into the future, what future challenges are we seeing as well? So there is this large topic of the urban air mobility. If you think about flight taxis, if you think about parcel delivery in critical infrastructures via drones in a harbor or in an airport, also testing the different flight corridors gets more and more essential. And this puts additional challenges really to the critical infrastructure because you get another dimension of operation into it. So as I said before, just a few examples about challenges, but I'm here the next 2 days. Also my colleagues are here. I added our details also to the website, so whenever there are any questions or you want to reach out and have a discussion, please feel free to contact me. It would be really a pleasure to understand what challenges you are seeing in the critical infrastructure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Anne. We have time for questions. Any questions? I have a question. Security.
Yes.
You mentioned a lot. What's the proportion about doing that in-house, hiring right people, or outsourcing that, hiring some security agency, red teams, hackers, to do some testing on your system?
So speaking from our side, so we are providing solutions to our customers. And of course, we have our experts in-house, but we also work with contractors, we work with universities, we work with partners, Fraunhofer Institute to name one, so industry partners, and of course also we work close with the customers to really best understand the challenges they are having. And also with the industries, it's important with the universities because they have the opportunities to look a little bit more into the future and to look to dedicated challenges. Or sometimes there are teams bounding up in the industry, like we get together with other partners and even work from a government founding or things like that. So there are multiple ways in working on the challenges.
So it's like a community, building a community of partnerships around the whole infrastructure.
For me, many things in the challenges of critical infrastructure have to be solved by the community. It cannot be solved by a single person. It's really the community. Because first of all, you have to understand what the challenges are and how to overcome them. And some of the challenges you cannot foresee. You just see them when it's happening, and then you have to be quick. You have to react fast to solve them. But it's really a lot about exchanging with the community, exchanging with others, and learning and have a plan how to address it.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.